Good evening, everyone. You're in the right place at the right time. This is Coast to Coast AM, slamming into your radio like a supercharged nanoparticle of dark energy, squeezing your brain and messing with your mind and hopefully keeping you up so late you have to call in sick tomorrow morning. Greetings from the boldest, bawdiest, most outrageous city in the world, the planetary capital of sun, fun, sin, sex, and secrets, my not-so-humble hometown, Las Vegas, Nevada. Hope you and your family had a wonderful Easter Sunday, and I'm glad you're topping off your holiday by tuning in tonight. My name is George Knapp. I'm your host the third and fourth Sundays of each month, your trail guide, your designated driver of the airwaves, at least for the next few hours. And we're going to have some fun tonight. Coming up in this hour, we'll be joined by Luke Fortune, who put together a series of 6 books, massive books, examining UFO-type propulsion and craft. These aren't some flying saucers made on some alien planet, but rather nuts and bolts objects designed and patented by plain old human beings. And you won't believe how many of them have been patented by scientists over the years in our country and other countries, and maybe we can all learn how to build our own. Well, it's not George Norrie, it's George Knapp, but you know what? We're interchangeable. This is Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back. If you're like me, you saw the Jetsons, that show growing up, and you probably wondered, when the heck are we going to get some flying cars anyway? Well, the guest coming up is going to tell us how you can build your own. That song, by the way, by the Police, it's perfect because it is perfect transition, because walking on the moon is something you could do for yourself if what Luke Fortune is selling is accurate. And we're going to take a short break, and as soon as we're coming back, we'll tell you how to build one. This is Coast to Coast AM, and I'm George Knapp. Welcome back to Coast AM. I'm George Knapp, and I'm joined now by Luke Fortune, who's a certified paralegal who's been aggressively investigating UFOs since 1997. He had some sort of an experience of his own, a sighting of something that looked like a plasma propulsion craft, so he began researching the archives of the U.S. Patent Office and then other patent offices and looking for UFO technology. And believe me, he found a heck of a lot of it, and he's put them into a series of books called UFOhowto. Luke, welcome.
Thank you for having me on the show.
You know, I noticed I've only read 2 of the books. I got them earlier this week and devoured them, and very interesting stuff. But I noticed in both of them, you start in the beginning by telling the audience or your readers that you're not a debunker. My question is, why did you feel you had to tell them that?
Let me start by saying I am not a debunker.
Well, when I first came out with the message, I received a lot of hostile responses from people who seemed to think that I was a debunker. In their mind, it seemed to equate that if we did have the technology, if we did possess the technology, that for some reason that must mean that aliens are a fraud, and that is not my position. I've never taken the position, and it seemed to be a recurring concern that people had, so I just decided to implement it so that people knew right off the bat. I'm not about debunking. I'm not about proving that aliens don't exist. What I am about proving is that UFOs are just unidentified objects. UFOs, we now have the answers to that we are capable of building and replicating the kinds of craft that people are seeing and recording. Glowing balls of light in the sky, high-speed maneuvers, that sort of thing.
Is a ton of material. I mean, just in the 2 volumes that I've got, that just a huge amount of material. How much do you have, and how did you collect it?
Well, as you stated earlier, I had my first viewing in 1997. I saw a craft that just defied what airplanes were capable of, and I wanted to know. And so I began pursuing and looking at every option and venue that I could think of, and began doing research at the patent office because I was actually doing some patent work for someone, and stumbled upon these, what I will call exotic propulsion systems. And I began assimilating all this information for my own purposes, but there was such a large volume keeping it in a database, I realized that people would want to know. And as I saw the financial situation of our country growing more and more dire, when we had the Enron scandal, for example, or the dot-com bust, or now the subprime mortgage debacle, we really need to renovate our economy and the global economy. And with this technology, we can do just that.
You said you started for your own purposes, meaning you wanted to build one yourself?
Absolutely.
And have you?
I have begun work and undertaking in that direction. It's a matter of trying to get the funding and financing.
You break it down into different types. Tell the listeners what the types are.
Well, there are a lot of people who are going to say, we noticed that the first book is called 100 Years, and then you have the other categories, 100 Years of UFO Patents. And the reason I started that was, as I said, just for my own purposes, and I saw that the technology went back that far. As I was looking at the photographs, the earliest ones that I could find, I recognized that these patents did describe crafts that people were photographing and were matching the abilities that they were perceiving. So we go with the first book initially of just 100 years and approaching various types of craft and different things, and then we get more specific, the electrogravitic craft. Some people have an aversion to that word electrogravitic because they don't really, perhaps say, grasp it fully. I use it as a blanket term for all the electromagnetic propulsion systems. Then you go into the plasma propulsion, which is what initially drew me in here, basically a high-powered rocketry. Magnetohydrodynamics, which is the science, the patents that explain how a craft can appear like a glowing ball of light and be invisible to radar. And then the final two were included because of friends with interest in inertial propulsion systems and in fusion and antimatter designs.
What you don't get into in this is whether any of these are actually ever built. I mean, you have all the interesting information about what they look like and diagrams of how you could build your own and how big they could be and who filed the patents. And those are some interesting names as well. But have you followed up to ask any of these guys to contact the guys who have the patents to see if they actually built one?
Well, a lot of the people from the patents that are there aren't available for contact because, they've moved on in this life.
Right.
The things that I have been able to find and have been able to research, the patent office does not always require, except when they hear extraordinary claims. When they hear claims that appear to be supernatural or unbelievable, they have the right to exercise and require people to provide working prototypes. And
I noticed that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I noticed that one of those was filed by a scientist who worked for Lockheed way back when. Was that some years ago?
There are several scientists that fall within that category, Lockheed and other, say NASA, GE Aerospace. One of my favorite of the inventors and the one that I think deserves the most credit, a lot of people will say Thomas Townsend Brown. Yes, he does deserve it, and he does get a prominent place, but is Henry William Wallace. He is the gentleman who discovered the technology that makes it possible for people to survive inside a craft that is making, say, right-angle maneuvers at thousands of miles per hour.
Well, that's an interesting point because it's what a lot of people use to say UFOs couldn't have occupants because the occupants couldn't survive the Gforces. So what is the explanation for how that works, how you avoid that?
Well, on my website at UFOhowto.com, I try to explain that in detail. I also do that in the book, The Basics, which is a shorter version. You'll note that the other books, which were originally 6, I've now expanded to 9. Each one are over 500 pages in length, except The Basics, which is about 120. Long story short, there are certain materials that when given a very, very high-speed rotation or otherwise stimulated and excited, say like with high-voltage impulses, they create this field, a distortion field. Wallace referred to it as a kinematic field. And this causes propulsion and movement in a direction. It also creates the gravity and inertia nullifying effect.
Back to this thing about the Lockheed thing. You're familiar with Area 51 and all the stories and
yes,
that I've been reported over the years and others have reported. And, Lockheed has always had a presence out there. There have been reports and stories of very exotic craft being developed by the Skunk Works out and tested out there. We know some of them have made it out into the public world. And there are rumors of other more exotic things that maybe have incorporated UFO technology in there. The fact that you have Lockheed scientists filing patent applications more than once, it sort of lends credence to some of those stories.
Absolutely.
And have you contacted Lockheed to ask them, hey, did you get this thing up and going?
I had tried to get a hold of Lockheed and tried to get a hold of Boeing. I was unable to get responses on my requests.
So you're sort of in the process of maybe building one of these things yourself. I mean, it would seem to me it's an awfully tough process, although some of this information is very simple, even for non-technical people like me. the building of it. I mean, you got to have some kind of engineering skills, don't you?
Well, what I've discovered is that the ability probably exists within the grasp of more people than they realize. A person who can work with machining tools, say like having taken high school metal shop classes, a person who's ever worked with ceramics, like manufacturing pottery, or a person who's ever done electrical repairs on a car, like replacing an alternator, they possess the ability, they possess the skill set if they can follow directions to build.
Well, that lets me out. Hey, tell me this: some of the diagrams, they show things that sure as heck look like a flying saucer, and I wonder, is there some engineering reason, some aerodynamic reason why the saucer shape would work for these kinds of technologies?
Well, for the airfoil designs, you're looking at aerodynamics and control elements. With the electrogravitic technologies, you would be looking at every once in a while you come across a photograph of a flying saucer, and the saucer appears to be tilted at an angle or almost even on its side. That vast area surface would be ideally for, say, an electrogravitic propulsion system. That would be a high K dielectric, a material that's very good at absorbing electricity in a capacitive sense, likewise containing the odd nuclear spin values. You're actually exciting on an atomic level. You're exciting the nucleus of the materials, and the more area that you cover, the greater the propulsive effect, but also more areas inside of the craft are protected by that kinematic field, that inertia canceling field.
So if you could build one of these things, you could go anywhere that we figure aliens, if they exist, are going, right?
Well,
zip to the moon, zip to Mars?
You could definitely go anywhere within the solar system. Thomas Townsend Brown, who did much of the pioneering work, in his time he referred to it as electrokinetic work rather than electrogravitic. He believed that it was possible to achieve speeds greater than the speed of light in a vacuum. And so there opens the possibility in the doorway that perhaps transport to other star systems could be possible. But certainly you could reach other points in the solar system, our solar system, which is part of the reason why I'm pushing so hard to try and get the word out now, because moving into the solar system, we could avoid, you were speaking about a scientist who believed that 4 out of 5 people needed to die because the Earth is overpopulated. We don't need to sacrifice people. We just need to expand into the solar system, and here is a technology to do so. You know, we can start with a life of living in space stations or moon bases, or setting people out to do prospecting on the asteroid belt or on Jupiter's moons. I mean, this can become a reality with this technology.
Well, yeah, you heard my wisecrack about the Jetsons, but yeah, I'd love to have a flying car and
We've been promised that since we were kids. Where is it? Well, it's here, but we're conditioned to live in this pay-per-use system. Okay, they want us, from the profit standpoint, there's always been the concern about trying to milk the most profit out of the people, so let's not talk about this technology and say, well, we're just offering what the market will bear. Well, people are concerned, and now they're having to face the reality of peak oil approaching. The president himself and every presidential candidate is talking about, getting off of oil, gasoline, looking at alternative fuels. So I released the final 3 books, or I should say the latest 3 books in the UFOhowto on power systems, the final of which is about hydrogen technology that is in the public domain, with a particular emphasis to be able to convert your automobile to run on water.
Well, I know a guy who's done that, and he's got all sorts of grief from it. That brings us to the obvious question, though. Your book is listing patents that have been filed for 100 years, so where are these things? If any of these people have built them and they do work, where are they? I mean, obviously some of the things that we're seeing in the sky as UFOs could be some of these Earth-made, still UFOs, but not made by aliens, made by Earthmen, but obviously, they're not selling them in flying car lots down on Main Street.
Well, if you're talking about the power systems, or you're talking about the actual flying craft.
Well, I guess the combination of the two, because you need the propulsion and the craft to get up there.
In taking a look at, say, we'll address the power systems, the first part, and fuel. You can go back to as far as the 1920s, I found, and find patents being filed for high-performance carburetors that get exceptionally good gas mileage. And many of these, they were bought by oil interests. They were bought and they were shelved and they were never manufactured. There are a lot of horror stories which I will neither confirm nor deny at this point, about people and their lives being threatened and et cetera. Whether they were implemented, they were not implemented because of that or because they were shelved, you have to follow the money trail. Who stands to benefit by something like this not coming to market?
Exactly. Or maybe there's a national security application that this stuff is all in the hands of the military because they don't want regular folks or bad guys having it.
Well, there are over 3,000 patents that are currently classified. They're not available for anyone to review under the interests of national security. So as you've seen by the books that I've provided for you to review, there is a huge volume available. You can only imagine what is out there that is not.
Well, that makes you wonder why they let these ones out.
Oh, some of them, I think, slipped under the radar, like Henry Wallace's work. His method and apparatus for generating a secondary gravitational force field or for generating a dynamic force field, I think both of those kind of slipped under the radar. Perhaps they didn't realize at the time what was going on. Military didn't know what to look for. Who knows?
Was it difficult to get the information? Did you have to use FOIA, or did the patent office give you what you needed? And the same question applies to foreign offices, too.
Well, I found most patent offices – I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. I found the U.S. Patent Office to be very, very agreeable and easy to work with. There wasn't a necessity to get into, any sort of legal strong-arming. Just a matter of knowing how to do the research and how to pull it out. But when you've got a system that has over 7 million different filings in it, it's easy to lose stuff. The U.S. Patent Office is not the only place that I've seen this technology emerging. There are a couple of patents which I've translated from the French. There's only about maybe 2 or 3 total, a few from Great Britain and a couple from Canada. But this technology is cropping up everywhere. As UFO sightings increase, so do the number of filings. I found filings for UFO propulsion systems, I'll call them exotic propulsion systems, EPS, in Russia, in Germany, in Italy, in Hungary, Spain, China, Korea, Japan. People need to be taking this into consideration as more and more UFOs are being seen every year. Likewise, the number of filings are going up.
Yeah, well, it's a race. In your books, you got these warnings, too, in big, bold letters about warning. It's basically telling people, don't do this at home unless you know what you're doing because it's some dangerous stuff. I mean, it is dangerous, isn't it, some of this technology or this apparatus?
Well, in the electrogravitic systems, you're dealing with high-voltage electricity. And if you're using alternating current, like, say, Nikola Tesla had originally envisioned, there it would be safer with higher frequencies. But a lot of the stuff involves direct current and high voltages of direct current, which can be fatal if you touch the wrong wires together. So it really is important that a person who wants to undergo on this has basic understandings of electricity and knows about the safety factors when dealing with high voltages.
You're working on one. You're building something yourself. So obviously you've looked at all these pages and figured out which one works or which one looks best to you, right? Or have you combined a couple of them?
You could say that I combined. The thing that I found is that, like with why the books are subdivided in their different categories, why a plasma propulsion, why a magnetohydrodynamics, why electrogravitics, you can say, yes, there are the different subcategories, but it's almost as if the same patent keeps getting reissued because people have different terminologies over the years. Each person, like, say, for example, in the electrogravitics, they discover that high-voltage electrical impulses applied in the right way cause a propulsive effect, but they don't know how to describe it. So they put it in their best terminology. Well, 10, 15 years later, another person thinks they've discovered it. They put it in their terminology, and things have modified and evolved. So you end up with the same designs being repatented just because of the communication barrier.
Right. Now, 6 volumes, not everybody's going to buy all 6, so I don't need to buy all 6 to know how to build a UFO, do I?
No, sir. You could, with any single volume that you purchased, you could design and build a flying craft that operates as UFOs seen, filmed, and video recorded. It was just, what is your preference? Like I have friends who are, like I said, who are really big on the idea of fusion systems, cold fusion systems, and the idea of working with antimatter. So I compiled the information that I found, which covers those categories and is applicable to the flying craft. But that's someone else's. I'm personally drawn to the electrogravitic and magnetohydrodynamic.
Well, thanks. That saves us a lot of time there, Luke. Luke Fortune, good luck with your books, UFO How To, and there's a website, UFOhowto.com.